All right, friends. Good morning to you. Good afternoon to me. Hope everybody's. Can everybody hear me? Okay, Josh, can you hear me? Nope, Josh just disappeared on me. See if we get Josh back. Josh, where'd you go? Okay, so it looks like you guys can hear me. This is good. All right, I'm going to keep this to now. We've got 14 minutes, so I'm going to be on this. I just want to give you guys the weekly focus here for these quick few minutes here. Some things. Mace, looking good. Look at that fresh face. The scrub, little scruff coming in. You're looking sharp. All right. Okay, first things first. I want to talk a little bit about where we're at with our numbers, kind of a state of the database. This is all the UG included here. Right now, looking at last year on this day, we are up 17% in total apps submitted. The inquiries were up and apps started. I don't really count those because that's just a lot of noise, but this is actually students who are actually doing things. And because of your engagement, we're up 17% on apps submitted. That is fantastic. Apps completed up 24%. This is great. And then apps admitted, we are up 15% currently. So even though we may have some shortages, some staffing, and so forth, the shortages would be not as evident on the inquiry side because of just having a full staff last year and marketing efforts going out. The inquiries should continue to go up. And even the app started should be some byproduct in there. App started going up, but the fact that our app submitted, completed, and admitted students are up is fantastic. With the whole that's where we would feel the staffing shortage the most in those categories. Now, if we break down the territories, we do see some territories are really overperforming versus others. The U.S. is lagging a little bit, but again, that's reflective probably overall of the staffing situation. So, as a whole, UG, this is good news. You should feel good about that. It's you guys are doing the work. It has been, I know, with Missions Fest last week. We've got another small conference this week. We had the week before Missions Fest, then Breakforth. Now another youth leaders conference, a small one this weekend. It is a lot of back to backs, and so thank you for you all and can continue to do it. It shows up. It shows up in our data, and so you should feel good about that overall. And specifically on the call side, when we get a little more granular with what are we doing, how are we engaging our students, we talked a little bit about calls the last couple of weeks. I'm going to continue to hit that drum. Last week, non-SLY, and for those who are not familiar, we have that SLY program that's sending voicemails out for students. These are non-SLY calls. We had 790. Now, keep in mind that 790 does not reflect transfer or international because you guys have a different call pattern. You guys, plus transfer, you guys have been a little busy because you guys were awesome, by the way. But we had 790 non-SLY calls last week, which means if we break the whole team out of just non-transfer and international to the side, just the Canada US, that's about 98 calls per AC, or that comes out to about 20, so or 17 to 20 calls per day, which is pretty low. I'm gonna challenge you guys here because that 98 calls per AC, we had Pam, Liesel, Jonathan, and Chris were above the average last week. Okay, now and specifically Pam and Liesel, you guys were at Breakforth for 3 days, and yet you both cleared 115, 120 calls or better. So Pam, Liesel, and Jonathan and Chris, you guys were all above the average. There were several of you that were way below the average, and I'm just letting you. You can look at those numbers. You can look at the report and see where you fall in that. But uh, um, we can do better than that. 17 to 18 calls per day. Look, there's a lot that happens. There's a lot that happens in the course of a day. I get it, but I'm just gonna challenge you, and I'm not gonna look at the call notes. I don't want to get into that at this point. But I'm just gonna say this: unless all like you had 12 high quality calls, like 20 or 30-minute calls per day, the reality is 17 calls per day is not a lot. It's not. I mean, you can make more calls than this, and we've got students that are engaging. You've made efforts to connect with these students, and we've got to work through this database. We still have a substantial amount of our database that has little to no activity, and so I'm just trying to just challenge you respectively. You should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 25, 30 calls a day. And that, even in that, coming from, so that if some of you have been in call centers before, you understand that that's low. That's low. And so take that as a challenge. Take that as me being a little bit more direct on the call situation. We still have an abundance of students that need to be contacted. It's with second semester. All the students, U.S. and Canada, and even the transfers, they're starting to, hey, I've got to make decisions. I've got to get serious. You've got reasons to call them. So please start digging into your database, challenge yourself. Last week we talked about breaking out into kind of accountability partners, transfer team. Maybe you guys get together, say, hey, this week this is what I'm really going to try to do this week. Hold yourself to that. Call your buddy on the team, whoever it is, and say, look, this week I'm really going to dig in. I'm going to try to get myself somewhere between 25 and 30 calls a day. And I understand you got appointments. I understand you got things. We've got financial aid nights. We had a great one last week. And good things are happening, and it takes time. But I'm also going to point out to Pam and Liesel, who were at the top of the food chain last week in terms of total calls, 3 days last week. Well, if you actually count a travel day in there, 3.5 days, and they still led the way in making calls. So I'm just saying, and they were above the average. So it can be done if you've just got to prioritize. And that's the challenge. Hey, I've got it. This is the group of students I'm calling. This is what I'm doing. Have some objectives. Press into your calls. I'm just going to keep beating that drum. Calls. All right. With SLY, so we had 790 non-SLY. With SLY calls, we had 1,474 total calls were placed. So that counts the non-SLY. So about 60% of our calls of the SLY calls were to inquiries, which is great. That's exactly what SLY is used for. It's to help hit that large pieces of our database that we don't have a ton of time to get calls through. It's just you're just putting it out there, and then about 27% of the remaining calls overall in our database went to app submitted to admitted. And that excites me because that's exactly what shows up in our database. You are focusing on you're starting to react less to your funnel and starting to control your funnel more. And that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. If you react to your funnel, you're like, oh man, I got so many things I got to do. I got to pull, it's just got to make all these calls. Now Matt's pushing on me. But actually, what I want you to do, and this is what SLY can do for you, and we're going to get to SLY in a second, SLY can help you. SLY can help you send out a broad message to the top, but then you and your actual calls reaching through and say, this student is responding, this student is responding, this student is responding, and intentionally pulling them through. We're going to get more into that, but SLY is definitely helping us. We've seen students go all the way to admit. We've seen students sign up for financial aid nights. We've seen students schedule themselves for preview because of SLY. Josh, Megan, Paul, and myself have got testimonies to this. And so the transition here is that starting this week, you need to be in contact with Megan, Paul, or Josh after Wednesday. So don't call them now. You're texting them. Don't text them now. Don't message them. Don't do it. After Wednesday, you're going to call them because I want to talk to them about some of the processes. After Wednesday, you can set up a call with them, a little group call, however you want to do it. So come into the office, however you want to do it. And we're going to set some parameters around how we're going to roll out SLY for the whole group. Okay, international, I don't know how this works. If Elaine, you're seeing this, this would be something that you might want to talk to Tim. He's used this, but I don't know that he's used it on the international side. Might be a little bit more one-to-one conversation even with Phil. He could probably go into that a little bit more with you. But for the rest of the team, It starts this week. You can start using it, but there are going to be some strict controls around it. And I'm going to talk to uh, Josh, Paul, and Megan about this to make sure that we have controls, and we're just going to have some oversight on it because there are some cost impacts. Okay, I've got 5 minutes. I'm going to press through preview weekend numbers. Currently, I see, and I'm going to verify this with Tiffany. I show that we have 130 students who are identified as students coming to preview weekend, which is a little bit. I think we had 160 something last year at this time. It's a little bit behind. I haven't been able to break out how many of those are full 19s. That's really the priority to me because what's the gold standard? You said it at your house, in the office. You know the gold standard is 90%. Good for you. We want to get 90% of those students here, or at least to show up if they've RSVP'd. So I'm not really too worried about it. It's 189 total students or total guests have RSVP'd, which is great. But what's more important is the travel waiver. I'm actually sending an email out right after this call on the travel waiver. If your student is designated as staying overnight, we need to get the travel waiver. If you have not seen somebody on the team, see somebody on the team to know the process. I sent the document out to you all last week, but please check that process. You need to get the travel waiver to anybody staying overnight on campus. Okay, so I'm attaching. There was a slight typo. The word assigned was misspelled. Thank you, Pam, for catching that. We have made that change, and there's also a misspell on the RSVP link. We've changed that as well, Pam, so thank you. And so I'm attaching in the email the updated travel waiver. So if you've already sent the old one out, that's great. Make sure your students get it back to you. When parents sign it, whoever, right? Otherwise, the new one is here. Delete the old one and use the new one. It's even got today's date on it, so you know it's been updated. Save. This is the one you want to use. So preview weekend numbers are looking good. I've got 3 minutes. Mowgli issues. Mowgli, I emailed Amy last week. She was on vacation. She did make some changes to the system that helped out, but she has not responded to my Mowgli email. So if you're on campus today, please go see Amy and say, Amy, fix Mowgli. They just got to go through and clear the queue. I don't think our calls are going out, and so our text messages are going out, which is frustrating. We've got this tool. I don't know why it bogs down. Maybe they're not the provider for us going forward. That's an issue that I'll bring up at another point. So Mowgli, RSVP numbers, make your calls. Did I mention calls? Did I mention calls yet? Okay, 25, 30 calls per day. You can do it. You can do it. Get on the calls. Anyway, that's all I got for the moment. I find myself in Kansas City. I'm in Kansas City for today. I'm in Omaha tomorrow. Then I fly to Little Rock. Then I'll be in Fayetteville, and then I'll be in Wichita. So please text me. As Pam has learned, never leave me a voicemail. Just text me. Pam's shaking her head. Don't leave Matt a voicemail. Seriously, any student I work with, I save their number in my phone because I answer their voicemails. The rest of you, look, I got you probably told me, Matt, I'm missing a kidney. I'm not coming into work today. I'm not listening to that voicemail. Send me a text message from the hospital. Okay, it says I'm missing a kidney, and I'll be like, oh, well, yeah, see you tomorrow. Okay, all right, that's it. That's all I got. This is where I'm at. I'll be back on the weekend. I'll be back in time for next week for preview, and then we'll go back at it. So thank you very much for you guys doing. You guys are carrying a lot of weight. Thank you very much. It is now 11:14. I'm giving you a minute back. Peace out. Have a good one, friends.
Megan, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Hello?
There you go. Is everybody else online? What's happening?
I don't know.
Hey, Pam.
FaceTime?
Oh, there is people. Hi, Jaleesa.
Hello.
How are
I
you?
love it.
Good.
Good.
Oh, there's
Oh, look,
Mason.
can I
Oh,
do
he
this?
popped up and went away.
Yeah, I think
Oh, there
it
you are.
popped up and somebody's talking. I don't know.
I didn't know everybody was doing that. I didn't know that Matt was watching me. I'm doing that, yay, he fixed the mistake.
He's always watching.
He's always watching. He's like Big Brother. How are you feeling, Jaleesa?
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah. Oh, there's Chris. Hi,
Day
friend.
by
Oh,
day by
Chris came and
day.
went. It was a Chris sighting.
All right, I'm gonna hang up. So Pam, I'll call you.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Bye, Jaleesa.
Okay, bye, Jaleesa.
Bye.
Bye.